Hi, everyone. Today we are in day 3 of the Wise Humanity Summit. It's the second day of the Wisdom Within Me. We have gone through rites of passage, birth, and childhood from mother to the earth, father as a bridge yesterday. And today we are stepping into menarche, spermarchy, from boy to man, and adulthood, and poyodoshi, sexual initiation, and evolutive relationships. And today we have here with us Basil Savitsky. Welcome, Basil. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Veronica. It's a pleasure. This is wonderful work you've been doing. I'm so delighted to be a part of it.
Thank you. I feel like very moved by the whole journey. And for me, this part of the wisdom within me is very special. It's this of like to know that we all have a lot of wisdom within, and we just need to get in contact with it, and to have the understanding that everyone around us has that. Is like very humbling. It's very humbling to see this and to realize this. And this topic that you talk about today, stepping into adulthood, and I understand that it's one of the most important transitions in life in order to be caring humans, no? And I would love you to share a bit about this.
I think it's so enormous, the level of change. In one of the groups that I was working with, and had the privilege of working with teens who were stepping into their adulthood, would raise the kind of reframing perspective of the time that they're living in. And let's just say that they're 15. And let's just say that we're defining adulthood as 25, when the prefrontal cortex is fully developed and they've stepped into their adulthood, or very often their role and careers and that kind of thing. For them to think forward 10 years and for them to think back 10 years is such a dramatic change that one of the things that I was trying to unpack for them by just getting that little bit of reframe, because we're so in the present moment, instant gratification, and what's this text coming in, and everything is just immediate right now. It's very difficult to think sometimes a year or 4 years or 10 years down the line. And the thing that really landed for them in this transition moment that they live in, and let's just say their 15th year, was think back who you were 10 years ago when you were 5 years old, and how much your identity has changed since then. In terms of your capacity to go visit your friends, or the freedoms that you have, and the things that you think about and that are important, they're totally different between 5 and 15. And I'm trying to invite and get them to reframe that they're going to have that same level of difference by the time that they're 25. I mean, the whole brain being rewired, the whole world that we're living in can change so much. I don't know. At the time, I think YouTube and the iPhone were only 10 years old, so they were older, than as 15-year-olds than those technologies that have completely shaped their world.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, like, with all of this, like all this rewiring in one's body, this in one's brain, in this big transition that happens physically and in a maturity level. Why is it so important that we kind of transit this transition with awareness, and how can we support also this? Because it's.
Well, basically, we're going to be stuck with the brains that we have by the point in time when we reach 25, and that's so embedded in relationship and the experiences and our open capacity to build open-mindedness and to seek that which is within. All of those habits get ingrained. All of our thoughts and feelings and actions, they get ingrained in that brain chemistry within the course of those 10 years. And I mean, I don't mean to think that we don't have neuroplasticity and that adults are not growing and expanding, but basically for the most part of our adulthood is fairly static after 25. I mean, we don't go through as much, so we're kind of stuck with that brain, and we are who we are. I mean, we go through life changes, midlife crises, and openings, and shocks to our system and all that kind of thing. But we're basically who we are by the point in 25, and so that preparation for that level of change and capacity to assume responsibility is just profoundly important.
Yeah, so sorry.
Well, it's kind of like the first 5 years of life. I mean, people are gaining real appreciation for how important sense of safety and stimulation and what we learn in the sandbox we carry through the rest of life. That foundational. I think we have a repeat of that during adolescence.
And because we know the qualities, and the of a child, and that naturally the child is into receiving mode, and the teenagers are like in this a bit of exchange, and then what would you say like the quality of a mature adult or an adult which has gone through this transition consciously is like what are the qualities and of an adult?
Well, breaking it down and going back to the actual elements of Koyodoshi in terms of the identity, I think that realizing that we're completely different from who we were 10 years ago and who we're going to be, that's all identity issues. And then relationship issues is what the teen years are really biologically, we're hardwired to mate and to learn about relationships, and some of that has been extended, and so we learn about cliques and bullying and all of the different kind of peer pressures and getting to the point where I assume that my identity, I'm grounded enough in my identity that I don't care what other people think. That's a sign of adulthood. But at the same time, I'm grounded enough in my identity that I do care about the relationships that I have, and I have the capacity to care coming from within as opposed to being externally oriented. So it's a natural expression of relationship that comes from the surplus of my own identity as opposed to a need to have something out there to fill an identity that I'm not in touch with. And so I think the three kind of teen missions that are happening concurrently while all this rewiring is happening is who I am, what is my place in reality, whether that's the work world or sensitivity to the ecological of where I live, or my place in the video gaming world, or what is my reality, and sometimes it translates to work world. So and then relationships. So I think that teens are having to make sense of and align all of these different things in terms of who I am, what is my place in the world, and what do I really have to give to others. I think those are and answering those questions and developing qualities around them are going to be unique to each individual. But I kind of feel like it's a multifaceted diamond, the self, and depends on how you want to, how it's cut. For each one of us is unique, but they have some of these similar type. You can expect facets that are going to be associated with identity, place in the world, and relationship. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes. For me, what I harvest is like it sounds like in the childhood we are more in like a nurturing phase. And in teenagehood, it's more like exploring, as we say, our relationships and finding out about ourselves, mirroring ourselves with others. And in adulthood is that process into adult, which takes, as you said, many years because there's a transformation, is about kind of getting a solid contact with one inner, with oneself, like our gifts and the way we relate, and it's more like there is like an inner connection strongly. No, not so much about from outside like a teenager, but more from within. That's what I harvest. I don't know if we.
I'm thinking a lot for some reason about brain chemistry in this moment with you, and that we have two operating systems, and one is more internally oriented literally in our brain, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. And if you look at it as one, which is more of the resting, nurturing, literally being rocked, like as an infant, and being nursed, the comfort of connection, is one that whole element in the nervous system is counterposed to the external one, which is oriented towards exploring and taking risk. And if you think about it from a Taoist perspective, yin and yang, you can think about it from a brain chemistry perspective, parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. We're learning a lot, I think, now in terms of trauma and resiliency to understand that connection, that open-heartedness with people, that kind of relationship that we know when we were nursing, right? When we were being nursed, and when I am safe, and when I am trusting my digestive system can relax and be regenerated, But then there's this whole explore thing too, and that's very much the element within the team. So it's a balancing there, and I like to, I've told my teenagers before when I've been working with them, it's like a 2-year-old. They still have the same operating system. That hasn't changed, and a 2-year-old is going to, want to go, what is this thing? And put their finger in the electric socket, or they're going to want to eat dirt. They're going to, it's all explore, explore, explore. But at the same time, they're looking over their shoulder and making sure they haven't gone too far from their parents. They want to have that connection and maintain their sense of safety. And I think in the teen years, our sense of explore is much more, how fast can this car go? And what, and we're wired to take risk, and we're wired to make connection, so but I think that it's out of balance in terms of our society is so externally oriented that we haven't been taught the skills to learn how to connect to ourselves and really connect with each other from that heart space that that generates the same kind of love and safety and comfort that we felt when we were being rocked to sleep. Yeah.
I'm coming to this question that we have talked about in many of our talks of the event, about the state of humanity, right now, because as this young being, like we are like a young organ of the Mother Earth in a way, if you compare how old Earth is and how much we have been on Earth, and that and I found it very, I mean, I don't know if we say sweet, but like because we can be judgmental, of course, of all the things that we are doing. Or we have done on Earth, but when you see like, okay, we are so young, so young on this Earth, that it makes sense that we have done all this exploring and all this like eating dirt, like we have messed up a little bit because we are so young, and I feel right now we are ready for this rite of passage that you talk about, this into adulthood. Now we are ready, I think, as a, if we think of us as humans, of being, one organ of the Earth, I feel like we are ready. Okay, yeah, we did this, and we embrace. Somehow, I feel like we like to embrace, all of this, and say we are ready to step into the next and mature and be caring as well. And then one other thing that came up to me, I do want to say something about this.
Well, we better be ready. Yeah, I mean, we have to be ready, you know, and
Mm.
it reminds me of one of the things that I did in terms of relating adulthood to the gaming world in terms of leveling up. When you level up, we use 3 different levels. That childhood was level 1, and adolescence was level 2, and adulthood is level 3. You didn't have any choice when you leveled up to adulthood. I mean, puberty hits and you're in level 2. It wasn't because, oh, I
Mm.
was such a very successful game player and I won all these rewards and I accomplished all these missions and now I get to be a level 2 player. It was
Mm.
thrown on us, you know. But
Mm.
level 3 is something that's questionable. You don't necessarily, you know, reach 18 or reach 21, or you get a degree, or you get married, or you have children. None of those things automatically make you an adult. I
Mm.
mean, we have 41-year-olds walking around with the emotional
Mm.
capacity of 11-year-olds. We have 61-year-olds who are not really truly adults. You know, when you start talking about the qualities of it. So we have the choice. You know, we have the
Mm.
opportunity. And I think that sometimes it's crisis that throws us into that next evolutionary step. And we have to. We literally
Yeah.
have to grow up. I think it was Buckminster Fuller said, "Evolve or go extinct." I mean,
Yeah.
we're at that point. Yeah.
And I think that this is where the rites of passage become like the key, I feel, into growing up, into, because being eldering or aging has become like not so, people don't want so much to become to age in a way, like it feels like we're staying in a, and it's because of the, it has lost of its meaning or its role. So it's still important to understand the wisdom, and that's why we are going into each stage of life to find the wisdom in each, and the benefits and the role is so important to know all of this so that we can embrace it. No, otherwise, if a child has a sibling that is younger and it has the same right, then they want to grow, they want to be small and it's like you need to be clear, like, for people, that what is the responsibility in that stage of life, like, and that's why the talk of Hilarion is very interesting about responsibility, because usually, like, there's some rejection towards responsibility, because it has like a weight that it's not actually the real meaning. It sounds like respect, and responsibility is more like, because you're carrying something about this a system that we created. It's not the actual responsibility of that stage of life, but more a responsibility that has been created. And because it doesn't feel natural to carry it, then we are like, oh, no, I don't want this, I want. So for me, these rites of passage and understanding the real meaning of being a child, being a teenager, being an adult, and reconnecting with that nature of being an elder, all of it supports us in really wanting to grow up, and embrace the real respect and responsibility towards each other and nature and everything. So, would you like to talk a little bit about rites of passage, to like kind of like the phases and the importance of them?
I'm thinking about the whole concept of rite and ritual, ceremony, and along the lines of a rhythm, and that we're in a position where we need to reinvent this in a way in which we can really resonate as a society, because I think so much of our social fabric is being torn, challenged, divisive, polarized. Just even like what you were saying in terms of lack of respect for elders, or I mean, the generational divide as opposed to the generational harmony. That we need we need a rhythm, and I think that this is somewhere, in terms of my working with the whole issue of reality. Time is so important, and the time that we have been taught and the time that we have been trained to culturally to align ourselves to individually makes it very difficult for us to be able to find a timelessness, to be in the now. Very often when we're at our most creative, we totally lose our sense of consensus time, right? And I think that ritual almost invariably has some kind of temporal component to it, whether it's at points in the life stage, or whether it's the seasons of the year, or the turning of a birth year, or like a weekly day of rest, the whole notion of a Sabbath, or the rituals. I'm just thinking of just the ritual of passage requires some sense of movement across not just my own personal space, but in my time, and what is the season. And I don't know what 22nd century rites of passage might be. I mean, I can see that people are questioning a lot. What could 21st century rites of passage be like? And I think that there's a lot of returning to the old ways, and kind of a searching for redefinitions of ritual and time. But I don't think that speaks to a lot of modernity, and I think that as in looking at the talk that was today on Poyadoshi, we spoke about the need to listen to contemporary teens to find out what is their rhythm, what would work. But I don't think this 24/7, 7 days a week, 9 to 5, constantly being pinged by our cell phones in this ongoing, the nanosecond. I mean, what is a billionth of a second? I mean, that is even in our language speaks so much to a different relationship with time. And I think that indigenous wisdom and perennial wisdom of all the spiritual lineages ask us to investigate that quality. And I think that it would be really interesting to hear, like in the intergenerational live that you're having on Monday, I would like to ask, what are the resonances? What are the routines that are meaningful? Not the ones that have been imposed on us, like I have to be at my job, or I have a 12-hour shift, or I have a 5-day work week, or this kind of thing. But what is the rhythm of meaning? Because I think rites. This is a fresh question. I mean, I've never really had this conversation before. It's an interesting question. Maybe we can unpack that a little bit further and hear what the youth have to say about how do they find meaning within the context of time. Because ritual almost always is some form or fashion. I mean, if you look at any kind of spiritual calendar, the ceremony is pegged to time. And we're completely lost that. I mean, we're a totally ahistorical society. There's before the iPhone and there's after the iPhone. There's before 2001, or there's after. And if it's before, we've kind of lost touch with it. So our sense of time, we're not really grounded in historical context, and we have a lot of uncertainty about the future. So I think we have to be more adept with our capacity to live in the present. I talked a lot, rambling a lot here. I'm just thinking out loud. But what helps on a routine rhythm, which is what resonance and rhythm really have, resonance relationally is meted out in time. There's a frequency to that, and I'm very curious to see how they would answer that.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I think, of course, we're coming back to the rites of passage, but as you say, we need to adapt it to what's happening now on the world now and in the future. So youth is the key, to know the designs of the new rites of passage. I mean, of course, the 3 phases are very important. This harvesting, no, and letting go, and all of this, being aware of what has been, so that I can be integrated. And then this threshold part where you kind of challenge or kind of consciously cross the portal into the unknown. But of course, the content or the way of doing it, yeah, I would love to have like a vision, how do you call, like a circle of teenagers, kind of having a inspirational talk about this. Yeah.
I think one of the things that when I listened to the talk that we had when we recorded the talk today that's being released on Koyadoshi at the Wise Humanity Summit, and there's two things that came up. One was that there's a sense that the transformation from caterpillar to butterfly is something that's inevitable, and I'm not, it's like a natural process, and we have no idea what's going to emerge out of this human transformation that we're in, or that we're engaged in right now. But from an intergenerational perspective, another thought that really wasn't in our conversation that I wished had been, so I'm bringing it up now, is the meeting between generations, because I think generationally the vision is supposed to always be fresh. I mean, that rewiring is going to bring novelty in, whether it's a new style of music or it's a new way of thinking about things the way they think the world needs to be because we screwed it up. I think that energy, it's like the energy associated with that impulse coming into adulthood with a new vision was something that I was definitely honoring when I was saying we need to listen and find out from teens what they perceive that their rights could be in terms of defining, and that's asking them to bootstrap, really pull themselves up from the bootstrap without any kind of cultural support for that, which, that's sad, but that's the reality that we're in right now. And the other half of it is what's our responsibility as elders. And I think you can be an elder in your 20s. I'm not saying elderly in terms of elderly age, but elderly in terms of accessing and embodying wisdom, becoming an adult. And I think that it has to do with structure. So the sense of community that supports the exploration. So it goes back to the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. I think that the role of elders within the concepts of supporting youth, or as one friend of mine put it, youngers, right? How the elders support the youngers is by giving that structure that will give them the safety to explore. So there's a balancing.
This I agree so much. It's incredible. This with the elders and also the intergenerational relationships. It's like so powerful. I mean, I lived it in this event that I organized in Sweden, conscious parenting, and it's so strong. Like when we are together and to listen to everyone, it's absolutely this feeling of the full tree, and that the wisdom that comes when all of us are together. For me right now, when organizing the event, I feel like the support of the elders has been key, strong key, really, and of other adults, because it's like it supports you to bring the message and to grab and everyone sharing their message, and when we are together, it feels so strong. And also this now with the other events who have also shared, and then we support each other. It's like intergeneration. That's why I really would love all the teenagers who feel calling to share their voice, to listen to them and to the children. I mean, my daughter Fauna and Lawrence, they share things that for me, like, they are surrealistic, or they have dreams where things that I'm living, and then they share it like, if I have a feeling of like a portal, then my daughter draws a portal, and I'm like, how is she connect with that? Or she dreamt with the ancestors like last night. That we're so interconnected, everyone. I don't know what's going on right now with other people, with, but I think something is happening, and it's like that we are finding the gift in each person. We are all needed right now. I feel it so strongly, and some are getting in contact with it, and some I think are realizing, because I feel like if we are here now, it's because we are needed. Like we are like the trees and everything. It's like we together with everything have a role, and yeah, it's so beautiful to do this now, to dive into our experience as humans and not just surf it, and
Mm-hmm.
slide over the ocean of life,
Mm-hmm.
but really get immersed into this, and I mean, there's these challenges also, no, in going through my past and integrating my childhood, integrating my teenagehood. Of course, there is, but it's so much gifts in integrating it, and being whole, and gathered, and own my wounds, and one thing that I feel very strongly is that if we think of humans as one being, all of us together, there is some beings that are maybe causing pain, or because they are in pain, and there is a lot of not so beautiful things happening. I mean, quite horrible things also. But I feel like that's also part of me, so some humans are playing out the shadow, and some humans are playing out the light, and some humans are playing out, like we are, everyone is playing out something. But if we think of it as all, we are all one, when we can kind of feel united with them and send love, and the more people that is resonating with love, I feel like, as Michiko Hayashi talks about water, if I don't know how many percent of people, no, Masaru Emoto said, no, see if so many percent of people will resonate with this vibration because we have collective connections,
Mm-hmm.
then it's gonna expand. So I really resonate with that, to that, the more we are connected with this, then we can spread it. Yeah.
I'm, I'm,
Thank you.
I'm thinking about the alignment of cells, like when biology moved from single-celled organisms into a colony of multicellular life. And if we as individuals within humanity are individual cells, what does the organism of collective humanity look like? And the thing that I love of what you were saying that sparked for me here is it's like in a multicellular organism, each cell retains its own integrity. So it's not like we get lost in a soup of, we still have our own identity. But in the multicellular organism that is my individual human body, every cell has the same DNA. And so it's like an enormous holograph. And, of the numerous cells within my body, each one has that same signal, and I think that when you're speaking to the unity of us all coming together, we also retain our own identity, and I that's really a powerful metaphor, and I can't, I'm at a loss of remembering the exact poetry of William Blake, but it's something to the universe in a grain of sand. And so the mystics teach us that it's true. It everything really is embodied in this particular expression of locality. The whole is in the whole is in the single part. And I think that may be part of what we're being invited to awaken to. And so when speaking from an intergenerational context, when we get to go deeply, right? And so a lot of people who assume elderhood feel like they have a message that they need to give to youth, right? And that immediately shuts the relational flow down because there's an agenda involved. There's a prescription, like you need to do this to grow up, X, Y, and Z, or whatever. You need to learn this. And so I think we have to be really careful about creating a safe structure without making it prescriptive. And whether that's on the best things that we knew of when we were growing up, or the things that we missed, that we've lost touch with from indigenous wisdom that we really wish people could come into now. You know, there may be elements of that that are integrated and brought forward, but I think that the way that the youthful energy, the new vision, can meet the safety and structure, and they really do meet, you know, on an intergenerational basis, and neither one is defining the other or taking the other for granted. That's where the magic can happen. And I think it happens on a deep level. So rather even thinking an inner and exterior, it's almost like deep, being able to go deep, to align to that purpose, to that shared thing. Because when you think about an individual cell, right, and the integrity of that structure of that cell, it's got to have a healthy boundary. It has to be, it has to have integrity. The cell wall has to be secure, you know? But then what passes over the boundaries of that cell, from my cell to your cell, and from all of the cells within this the Wise Humanity Summit, and then all of us collectively, what's the information flow that's coming across those cell walls? I think if it's really purely egocentrically oriented, like what kind of nourishment is passing by in the bloodstream can I gobble up and consume, and that kind of thing, and that cell's going to ultimately collapse. It's going to get gorged or engorged or something in the materialistic perspective. Whereas if it has something to offer, you know, what do I have to transmit outward, as well as what is it that I'm collecting inward, and what kind of information? And I think a lot of it has to do with information or frequency or resonance in terms of the message that's being sent. And we all know that experientially. I mean, we can connect to that. We just have a hard time languaging it. We haven't quite figured out how to talk about it. Because if we talk about a multicellular humanity, it's like, what are you talking about? You know, it's not like we're going to be all connected together like 7 billion Siamese twins. You know, what's emergent is something that's completely different from what we knew before.
One of the things that I stayed with of what you were saying is this of not having an agenda with other people, like, and that is a lot about letting go of control and wanting things to be in a certain way, and more about being curious and of discovering what is, what is this flower, how is this person, what is this gift, this person's gift. I think that's so beautiful, or so touching, because you don't know what other people come to bring. I mean, you might have a gift and you feel that's your message, and that's fantastic. And then other people have other messages and other ways to express them. Some people is activists, some people is more like working the land, some people is more like voicing, or I don't know. And this diversity and not having an agenda, just allowing others to express their gift in their own way. I feel that's key. And of course, for the elders, it's beautiful because they have the power of propulsating this and empowering, the others instead of.
So there was a marvelous book that was put out by the person who actually invented Visa card and the whole idea of transactions. His name is D. Hawk, and he wrote a book called Kaordia. And it's a compound word formed by chaos and order. So when you mention control, for me, that a lot of what's happening on the planet right now in terms of polarization and fear is, a need for control, a need, and then on the other end, so that there's chaos on one side and order on the other side of this continuum. What he was putting forward is chaordia is that sweet spot right in between, and I'm thinking of it from an intergenerational perspective. Not to say that teens are chaotic, but it may be that they're looking for that structure. And not to say that elders are always rigid, but we do tend to come forward with our sense of what gave us order and assume that that's going to be meaningful for others. So that's where the agenda comes in. If I'm really attached to my sense of order, then I have an agenda. And if the teenager is really against that sense of order or any kind of constraint and wants to be more creative and expressive and flowing, it may be kind of chaotic. And so how do they find in between? And the metaphor that D. Hawk put forward in this book was of salt on one side, which is completely ordered, sodium chloride, sodium chloride, sodium chloride, all stacked up on top of each other, cubes on top of cubes, and it's inert. There's nothing happening. It's just all fixed. It's so rigid, so structured that it's dead. You put salt on a field and it's, nothing's going to grow, right? Okay. And then on the other hand is hydrogen atoms that are just like bouncing all around, and there's no pattern to it at all. It's kind of like the static on a TV screen when there's no signal. It's and so the space in between those, if you take these two chemistry and molecular examples, between hydrogen gas just bouncing around and salt being rigid, if you go right in where's my hair? Yeah. You go right in the middle, the sweet spot is DNA. It's structured, but it's open-ended, and it's it's only four amino acids, but they form in enough composition, enough of a magical combination that we have 7 billion plus humans that all look different as a result of that combination. And so how do we find that chaordia? How do we find that sweet spot between the tradition of the past, maybe the structure that a lot of people want to go back to the way things were and all that kind of, and then versus how do we go forward in a way without any kind of structure, So that was a long little spiel, but I think that I think it might be as relevant for the intergenerational, the tone that we're trying to strike without an agenda, or not completely without an agenda, because we have an agenda to find wisdom, right? To find your meaning, to find depth and all that, but we're not prescribing what it is. I think that may be as meaningful as the question around time and rhythm and ceremony within contemporary culture.
Thank you, Basil. And is there a practice that you used to do with the teenagers when you were working with them to support them in this transition? Like something that you could share now for people to do for themselves? Because sometimes, I know of that even people of 50 and 60 sometimes go to do rites of passage to grow into adult at that age. So it's like it's never too late to, like you can be 80 and still.
Wow, that's a huge question.
Something that you used to do, for example, with the teenagers. It can be like, I don't know, like a practice, like writing, or a question that you need to answer, anything that you would like to share so that we can, start this process, maybe.
I'm gonna kind of go back to the idea of finding flow and being like if we think of I'm having a hard time finding the screen, finding my hand. Okay, you have an upper realm and a lower realm of existence, and we're kind of bouncing back and forth and up and down between those all day long. And it's kind of like the play between sympathetic and parasympathetic. We need to express energy and we need to recharge. So resilience is that sweet spot in the middle where we're neither overstimulated, we're agitated up here. Like our frequency is really high, and down here, it's like we're really bored. And there's a lot of the teen experience is there's a lot of boredom there because so much of rewiring is going on and this kind of thing. And they go back and forth between almost being shut down and being overstimulated, right? And so I think we all experience that. And so how do we find ourselves in that flow? Because flow is the point where we're appropriately challenged, but not overwhelmed. And so when I reflect on when am I in the flow, invariably it's an alignment of head, heart, and hand. Okay, so my thoughts are serving something greater, and I'm emotionally engaged in that, and I'm acting on it. So I'm bringing my thoughts and my feelings and actions together. And when I solicit from the teens that I've worked with, when they felt most in the flow, everybody can immediately relate to this. It was very, very often some form of creative expression, like when I'm making music, or when I am writing, or when I am dancing, or when I am on the court. I'm in this. The basketball court was an example that they used a lot, or the soccer field. I'm in the flow. I don't have to think about it. I viscerally, instinctively know what to do. And so, like, if our thoughts, feelings, and actions are three corners of a triangle, we're centered between those. And our thoughts and our feelings and our actions are serving that greater good that we're getting in touch with. Because, if you're on stage, you can know the lines, but if your heart's not into it, you're not going to be a good actor or actress, right? It really involves all of those. And I think that's why music is so resonant with the teen experience, and all of us, kind of go into a different space. It hits us on all three levels. We want to dance. We love the words. We love it's here. It's in the heart. So how do we find ourselves in the flow? When are we in a point where all three of those cylinders are firing in sync? My thoughts and my feelings.
Can you mention those three? Can you mention again the three that are aligned when you're in flow?
You broke up a little bit there.
Everything that aligns when you are in flow that you were saying before.
Thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's almost like and they are the three parts of the brain. If you look at the triune brain, there's the cognitive cortex, and then there's the limbic system, which relates more to our emotionality and our capacity to relate. And there's the reptilian brain, which is very cellular, very somatic. And putting those three in alignment is part of adulthood. Because that's the function of the prefrontal cortex, is to regulate literally the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions, the head, heart, and the hand that reside in our human brain.
Would you say, like, when we are in flow, it's like we, because we are aligned, then we integrate naturally? Is there something that is integrate, I don't know, our human experience in a way, or... Or is it we're connected?
And I think we're fostering dimensional literacy because we are arising out of that realm where we're dominated by our thoughts or feelings or actions. So one particular practice that I've used and exercised is the playlist, and to get people to reflect on what is my cognitive playlist. And what thoughts do I think over and over and over again? I'm stuck in this loop. And most of it, if we do that kind of inventory of what our thoughts are, then we're going to see how short our playlist is. We may have the same song that we go to 10 different musicians to play that same song, but it's still the same song over and over and over again. And that's easy. That doesn't require a lot of honesty. But if you go into the deeper level and start looking at your emotional playlist, that's a little touchier area, in terms of what is my script here. How many times have I been involved in this same fight? How many times have I been in this same relational cycle over and over again? That's harder to reflect on. But I think if we see what it is that triggers us emotionally and we start understanding as a playlist, we tend to react less and we start to respond more because we see that's our playlist. And so when somebody triggers a thought or when somebody triggers an emotion, we respond from the center because we're in the flow. And I think on the somatic level, and I think that's the doorway in really for us to embody wisdom, is to see what we do habitually, to see what is my behavioral, cellular, somatic playlist, and does it serve my larger good? And I think that's when we start becoming more sentient about our daily practice in terms of literally from diet to anything. And it could, on a negative side, it could be addictive behaviors, but it's still habituated behaviors are still a playlist. And so doing this inventory helps me see that I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my feelings, I'm not my actions, but that I can bring them in harmony, and that my awareness or sentience can express through my thoughts, feelings, and actions, and my awareness of my thoughts, feelings, and actions gives rise to sentience.
So the more we do also what makes us flow in a way, also it supports us in doing this, no? Like we bring in like the things that we like, this playlist, as you say, and we do more of what actually makes us feel aligned, or that we feel aligned with while we do it. And then slowly we are finding this connection, no, this inner connection, the more and more, and detaching from this and seeing it from a different perspective, no, what I'm not actually, what is just a conditioning. It's so much work, I feel, because of course we have learned to do things, to have to do things that are not aligned with us. So of course to step into going into alignment and flowing is like a total breakthrough for us, especially our generation. I mean, teenagers also, children maybe have a more opportunity to grow up with more flow, but as for us, it's totally new. It's like, no, I don't know if new, but it's revolutionary.
Yeah, and I think that one of the keywords that came up a lot in the talk that we had on Koyadoshi was the word birthright. And I think that this, if the challenge that I threw, once we learn what this flow state is and that we can always access that, it's only a breath away. We can, it's always there. We can always access it. What would it be if our birthright was to always be in the flow? That would truly be revolutionary. If we were individually capable of being that sentient, how could we do that collectively? And another thing comes back to what we were talking about before we went live, which was enthusiasm. That's a real clue, because where the Greek root word for what is it that I'm enthusiastic about, what is it that I'm passionate about, what is it that makes me live, is en theos. So it's a state of being in God or in the divine, divinely inspired. And so that's why I think, creativity comes from that place where thoughts, feelings, and actions are aligned. It always involves all three. And that what inspires us and what we're enthusiastic about is a real clue to the nurturance of that interiority, the fuel of that wisdom, because it is work, but if it's coming from divine love, then it doesn't really feel like work. Yeah, when we do work that we're really enthusiastic about, it's not exhausting. It's refreshing. It's fulfilling. And so that's when I think that the inner and the outer are in balance. The parasympathetic and the sympathetic, the divine inspiration that's coming in, and or the expression that is going out as a result of that balance and that integration. You use the word integration there.
Integration. Feels very powerful, this question. And I think I will share it in the comments down on the bottom of this talk, because I feel like right now what we need is also, this bringing it to earth, all this wisdom and all these talks, to really get in contact with all of this. So to find out when am I in flow, I feel is very supportive as well, to look into this, and also look at our children, look at our family, our parents, everyone, and support everyone to be more aligned. Of course, there is a transition to do, because as we said before, breaking through all the old ways. But the more we get close to this, being in flow, the more alignment. No.
Yeah, I didn't even think we were going to open the chat. Is there any? We got carried away with our own lovely conversation here. I don't know if there's any. Are there any questions in the chat, or are we?
No, there is no questions. But if you feel like if the people feel to share, please, and ask questions or share when are you in flow. I think this mirroring each other supports a lot. We are like more than 1,800 people. So if some of us share, then we can inspire each other in this journey. Thank you so much, Basil.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you, Veronica. It's been a delight having this time with you again.
Yes, same.
And thank you for all you're doing with this summit. Yeah. See you Monday on the intergenerational live. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be very beautiful. It's gonna be open also for everyone to watch. We having elders and youth to share more pearls of wisdom, and I actually invite everyone who has is with children or teenagers to ask them to share something. It can be written, it can be a drawing, and you can send it to me to Veronica@wisehumanitysummit.com, so we can share it, because I feel like I would like to have all the voices shared in the multi-generational meeting on Monday. Thank you, Basil. Have a beautiful day, everyone, and we see soon. Much love.
Mm-hmm.